Again, I'm pulling for the Bulls. I don't know if this is a championship year, but they're definitely getting my hopes up. Another team getting my hopes up right now is the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
But I am worried because let's take a look at the last Atlanta team that had a lead in the championship. The Atlanta Falcons blew a 28-3 lead. And how many teams in the playoffs have had a 3-1 lead and blown it in the championship in any sport? And I'm worried. I don't want Houston, but I'm pulling for Atlanta. Mr. Baseball Weekend Journal, Paul, help me out here.
I really do think the Braves can pull this off. I think, despite the fact that Charlie Morton got injured in Game 1 of the series and that kind of affected the rotation, both teams' starting pitching is just really suffering. And it's, Atlanta won a bullpen game in Game 4 last night, and tonight here in Game 5, they're doing another bullpen game. But they do have the luxury now of still having Max Fried and Ian Anderson should it go 6 or 7 games. Whereas Houston has to go all hands on deck from here on out, and they have to rely on Framber Valdez, who's fairly younger and only really has like one good postseason start so far this year. Luis Garcia, who just pitched the other day, so I don't know if they're going to get him out, a rookie on short rest. And then you got to hope if you get to a Game 7, maybe Zach Greinke, who's been a shell of himself. And I got the numbers, in front of me of like the Houston bullpen and the Atlanta bullpen, and they're decent numbers for bullpens. Houston going 19 1/3 in the first 4 games, only giving up 5 earned runs, but a lot of walks, a lot of strikeouts though. But giving up those 2 key home runs, the back-to-back to Dansby Swanson and Jorge Soler, which was the turning point of the series. We really should have seen this series tied at 2 going into Game 5 tonight at Atlanta, which gives Houston a huge advantage coming back home because even if they had their backs against the wall, they still have the home field advantage. It's harder for them now because they have to win the hardest one first at Atlanta and then come home and still play perfect baseball with no mistakes to get those games. So, we've seen anything's possible. We saw the last time the Astros were in the World Series, the visiting team won all of the games in that series. So you can expect the unexpected, but and of course, for those listening to this live when it's broadcast, the game's probably got at least some sort of vibe going on where you can at least kind of see which direction it's going or what we're talking about here. I think it's favoring the Braves to close it out tonight, but even if they don't, it's still going to be really difficult for Houston to pull off 3 in a row.
Marver? Definitely. The thing is that I hate to bring up the Chicago White Sox, but the way... the Atlanta Braves pitching is so outstanding. It's hard to believe that they could no-hit the Astros. Based upon what we saw against the White Sox, how is that possible that they would go 8 innings before they get their first hit the other day?
Houston, the team that won all their games, not with home runs, just with getting a lot of base hits. Yeah. And I was so pulling for that no-hitter. I told Paul yesterday how I was on the edge of my seat. This is... Since 2005, I can't think of the last time I was this vested in a World Series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fact of the matter is, when you're listening to the show, it could be different. But the Braves started out with 4 runs in the first inning, so it could be over.
Oh, as we're talking, I see, and I haven't even checked right now. Yeah. So I think with the crowd that they have behind them, I think all odds are pointing to the fact that this is going to be theirs. Surprisingly, only the 4th championship in Braves history if they pull this off. Well, and we're talking about a team that goes all the way. Milwaukee, Boston. We're talking about like the 1901, the first World Series, but in 117 World Series, this is only going to be the 4th time.
Well, didn't they make it to a bunch during like the Greg Maddux era and only won one, I believe?
So 91, which is probably the greatest World Series ever. 91. They lose in a best of 7, full 7 at Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Jack Morris gets a 10-inning shutout, 10-inning shutout, and the game-winning run is scored I think someone knocked in Dan Gladden from second or third or something like that, 1-0. Great game.
I love the games in the Metrodome where a ground ball to shortstop would go into the stand.
And then they have that plexiglass outfield wall. Yeah. 92, they lose to the Blue Jays. No World Series in 94, but they probably would have been favorites. 95, their only World Series that they won in the 90s with Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz. That was over the Cleveland Indians, and I believe that went the full 7. 96, they lose to the Yankees after going up 2-0 in that series. 99, they lose to the Yankees, and I think another 6-game series.
And now they've won their division 4 years in a row.
Well, not even 4 years in a row, but even the run that they went on before that with Bobby Cox, where it was 14 years in a row.
Right.
Mercado?
Let me ask you this, Paulie, and you could go whichever road. You pick your own adventure on this Halloween about this one, okay? Let's say that Houston comes back and wins the World Series. If you want to go down this road, feel free. Are they a dynasty? Because we know what happened in between, all the scandal and whatnot. Or
Well, I think first of all,
yeah.
to hold on to that question, but just to snuff out the dynasty talk. To me, I don't think spreading out 2 championships over the span of 5 years. Now, let's talk about like maybe an American League dynasty.
Okay.
Sure. You know,
Interesting. That's something we could dig into after the season. I think that'd be a fun one because it'd be interesting to see retrospect. As we retroactively look back at some of these teams during the analytical era, how we're going to look back at them. But in that one of the analytical teams being the Cubs, knowing what the Braves are doing right now and where they were at, essentially where the Cubs were at, really early on in May and June. What does it tell you about what some of these teams are doing in the trade deadline or the mindset of some of these teams moving forward over the next few years, depending on how this World Series ends and the way Washington won one and so on and so forth?
Well, we're going to run out of time for that one, Mercado, but I'm going to tell you, I picked them to win at the beginning of the season. Of course, it's a different Braves team than the one that I predicted to win the whole thing. You lose 2 essential players, but there was enough depth on this team where general manager Alex Anthopoulos was able to put together a really good ball club heading into October.
Yeah, they lost Morton, too.
Yeah, and then, losing Morton in game 1. I mean, they have that much depth where they were able to survive that.
Well, it's the fastest hour in sports talk radio, guys. And we'll see who wins tonight. The game's not over yet. If you're listening, it might be.
But keep it locked here. Don't change that dial.
Keep us on. Mute. Watch the game with mute. Keep us on. The marvelous one, Dan Marver. The hellacious one, Paul Chivari. Sports on the Couch is Mike Mercado. And you're truly Devin Tingle. Have a great night, and thank you so much for joining us.